What's up guys, Jake here. I have it. I have the official unclassified report put out by the government, available to the public, and it's from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. This is an unclassified report that was mandated to be delivered to Congress. We're going to break down all the important details of this report, and I'll give you my thoughts and reactions. First thing you should know is that this is a preliminary assessment. It even says this in the title, preliminary assessment. It's only 9 pages, guys, and one is a cover sheet, one is the scope of the report, one is just the summary of the report, and 2 pages are just appendixes of terms. So the actual report is only 4 pages worth of stuff. Definitely think there's going to be more requests for additional information. I definitely can see a maybe annual or quarterly report being mandated or required. What is the update on this UFO UAP situation that our nation is experiencing? So let's break down the executive summary and then we'll go into the finer details that I just want to highlight for you. So let's just go ahead and read it. The limited amount of high quality reporting on unidentified aerial phenomena, the government calls them UAPs, but UFOs is the more common term, hampers our ability to draw firm conclusions about the nature or intent of UAP. Meaning, this report is reporting that we don't have enough information yet to draw a definitive conclusion of what are these UAPs. The Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, UAP-TF, considered a range of information on UAP described in U.S. military and IC, intelligence community reporting, but because the reporting lacked sufficient specificity, ultimately recognized that a unique tailored reporting process was required to provide sufficient data for analysis of UAP events. So the task force that was formed only looked at incidences between 2004 and 2021. So 2004 is the famous Tic Tac incident with Commander Fravor off the coast of San Diego. So basically this task force said anything that happened before that, I mean, we have so much information since 2004, we have more reliable equipment and sensor readings since this time period, so we're going to focus just on events post-2004 up to the present date. Most of the UAP reported probably do represent physical objects, given that a majority of UAP were registered across multiple sensors, to include radar, infrared, electro-optical, weapon seekers, and visual observations. So this was not camera light flares, gaseous clouds, optical illusions. These were solid physical objects that were detected on numerous sensor equipment, in addition to eyewitness accounts from service members. So this is not imaginary, this is not made up, these are real physical things. In a limited number of incidences, UAP reportedly appeared to exhibit unusual flight characteristics. These observations could be the result of maybe sensor errors, spoofing, or observer misperception and require additional rigorous analysis. For sure, 100%, human memory is fallible, you're capable of making mistakes. Perhaps there is some instances in which equipment malfunctions. You always have to consider that's a possibility in select incidences. There are probably multiple types of UAP requiring different explanations based on the range of appearances and behaviors described in the available reporting, meaning there's a diversity of these physical objects in the skies that behave, look, react completely different from each other. There's no uniformity or consistency to what we are observing in the skies. Our analysis of the data supports the construct that if and when individual UAP incidents are resolved, they will fall into one of 5 potential explanatory categories: airborne clutter, natural atmospheric phenomena, USG, so United States government, or U.S. industry developmental programs, RTEC, foreign adversary systems, and a catch-all other bin. Now, UFO enthusiasts are going to be most excited about this catch-all other bin. UAP clearly pose a safety or flight issue and may pose a challenge to U.S. national security. And this is what is going to get the most traction in Congress and at the DoD. This is a national security issue, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Safety concerns primarily center on aviators contending with an increasingly cluttered air domain. UAP would also represent a national security challenge if they are a foreign adversary collection platform, or they provide evidence of a potential adversary has developed either a breakthrough or a disruptive technology. If this is a foreign government and their tech using it to infiltrate our airspace to spy on us or disrupt us, this is a huge problem. Consistent consolidation of reports from across the federal government, standardized reporting, increased collection and analysis, and a streamlined process for screening all such reports against a broad range of relevant USG data will allow for a more sophisticated analysis of UAP that is likely to deepen our understanding. So, this report is saying we need to have a process standardized across the different branches of the government, that when service members or any member of the government observes or records data on these UAPs, it needs to have a formal process to basically be collected, recorded, screened, and accumulated somewhere for someone to analyze to see, is there useful information for us? Some of these steps are resource intensive and would require additional investment. Bingo. This honestly is the whole bottom line of this report. Congress controls the purse. They have the money. The task force is basically saying, if you really want us to get to the bottom of this, if you want us to capture these UAPs on slow-mo 4K cameras, you're going to have to give us additional bodies. You're going to have to give us additional money and authority to figure out where do these things commonly go and what different kinds of equipment or cameras can we get the approval and the resources to take out there to get crystal clear photos and videos of them. Because right now, we're not getting it done with the radar and infrared cameras. We're now past the summary, and let's touch on the highlights of the body of the report. Available reporting largely inconclusive, so for people hoping that this report would say it was aliens, they can't do that. They're not going to do that until they have more information. And it just says, limited data and inconsistency in reporting are key challenges to evaluating what are these UAP. No standardized reporting mechanism has existed until the Navy established one in March of 2019. So this is in response to those videos that got declassified and then leaked to the New York Times. In response to that, in 2018-19, the Navy finally established a legitimate process for reporting and accumulating information on UAPs. So the task force is saying, hey, we haven't had a lot of time and resources to figure out more conclusively what these UAPs are. The UAP-TF regularly heard anecdotally during its research about other observations that occurred but which were never captured in formal or informal reporting by those observers. Meaning, there's a lot of hearsay. There's a lot of, oh, my buddy saw a UFO in the skies, it was probably this. So the task force is saying we can't take secondhand information, we can't take hearsay. Once again, they're not going to go prior to 2004. So this process that they've newly established, they're getting hard information on the books only from direct observers and equipment that has definitively captured it. So this task force is aware of 144 reports originating from U.S. government sources. Of these, 80 reports involved observation with multiple sensors. So you can do the math here. So 64 are from a single source, a single observer or equipment. However, 80 of these were observed on multiple sensors, multiple sources confirming the same incident occurred. So that's actually a really good revelation in this report, that this task force has already tracked and is aware of 144 incidents. Most reports described UAP as objects that interrupted pre-planned training or other military activity. So these UAPs were flying in restricted airspace. If commercial planes were trying to fly through a Navy exercise, they would be radio contacted and diverted and escorted away. But these UAPs don't respond to us. They don't respond to radio, they don't announce themselves. So the fact that they're just willy-nilly flying through restricted airspace, interrupting the exercises that our Navy pilots undergo, this tells me that it's definitely not us, and it's probably not a foreign adversary, because why would you make so many provocations into our restricted airspace unless you weren't aware of us or you just didn't care? Next, the report talks about UAP collection challenges. Socio-cultural stigmas and sensor limitations remain obstacles to collecting data on UAP, although some technical challenges, such as how to appropriately filter out radar clutter, this would be birds, I guarantee you guys these UAPs are not birds, to ensure safety of flight for military and civilian aircraft are long-standing in the aviation community, while others are unique to the UAP problem set. Narratives from aviators in the operational community, these are the pilots and the navigators, and analysts from the military and IC describe disparagement associated with observing UAP, reporting it, and attempting to discuss it with colleagues. So this honestly is the biggest change, the biggest shift in the DoD the last couple years. Since the DoD officially acknowledged UAPs are real, we don't know what they are. Pilots or any service members that have direct encounters or observations can now come forward without being ridiculed, without being made fun of. They can talk about this without having to worry about potentially their service career, a promotion, an assignment. They can legitimize their stories by destigmatizing it. So the media is covering it now. Serious journalists can follow up leads. They can report on it without being made fun of by the public or their editors or whoever. And this is a new permanent ongoing study. We're always now, the whole country is on the case now. We want to know what these UAPs are. We're collectively working together. This is a national security issue, and it's fantastic that we're making progress, and a big hurdle to overcome was the stigma of talking about them. UAP probably lack a single explanation. The report once again just gives its categories: airborne clutter. This includes birds, balloons, recreational, unmanned drones basically, debris, plastic bags, so forth and so forth. Natural atmospheric phenomenon, including ice crystals, moisture, thermal fluctuations that may register on some infrared or radar systems. This has always been known. We've always known about natural atmospheric phenomenon and birds. So these UAPs, the DoD is not mistaking these UAPs for birds. USG or industrial development programs, some UAP observations could be attributed to developments and classified programs by the US, but once again, why would they be operating in restricted airspace and near misses with Navy pilots? We're putting service members' lives at risk. I just don't believe that. We are unable to confirm, however, that these systems accounted for any of the UAP reports we collected. Foreign adversary systems, once again, China, Russia, another country, or maybe a non-governmental entity. Is Elon Musk, Richard Branson, or Jeff Bezos developing secret tech and then trying to challenge the United States military to see if they can detect or stop them? I don't see a private corporation achieving this level of technology without trying to monetize it, make money off of it. So there's no point to keeping it secret, unless you're basically a James Bond villain and you're just doing it to be evil. Then there's the other category. Although most of the UAP described in our dataset probably remain unidentified due to limited data or changes to collection processes or analysis, we may require additional scientific knowledge to successfully collect on, analyze, and characterize some of them. We would group such objects in this category pending scientific advances that allowed us to better understand them. The UAP-TF intends to focus additional analysis on the small number of cases where a UAP appeared to display unusual flight characteristics or signature managements. So the report's not going to mention aliens. They're not going to mention, multi-dimensional beings. But it is interesting that the task force is saying we're focusing on this other category because they're displaying unusual flight characteristics. This is potentially advanced technology, and I think that is what gets the scientific community and pilots very, very interested in these UAPs. But maybe we just need science to catch up. We need additional scientific breakthroughs before we can finally understand and track these UAPs in the sky. Last thing worth mentioning in the report is UAP threaten flight safety and possibly national security. Yes, this is going to get the attention of Congress. If these things are violating our airspace, they are a threat to national security. So, ongoing airspace concerns: when aviators encounter safety hazards, they are required to report those concerns. So if you're a pilot and you have a near miss with something unidentified in the sky, you need to report that. You almost crashed, you almost died. Depending on the location, volume, and behavior of hazards during incursions on ranges, pilots may cease their tests or training and land the aircraft, meaning they can't do their exercise, they can't do their normal scheduled operations if these UAPs are getting in our way. Potential national security challenges: we currently lack data to indicate any UAP are part of a foreign collection program or indicative of a major technological advancement by a potential adversary, but we can't rule it out yet. And then finally, it was mentioned in the summary, but the report then talks about that explaining UAP will require analytical collection and resource investment. Congress, give us more money. I don't know how many people work on this task force. I don't know what their authority is. If they want to, for example, go out to where Navy pilots are doing training exercises, do they have the authority to make their own recorded observations? Probably not. But if Congress wants to get after this, they definitely can. What's going to come of all this? Well, we know there's 144 reported events. The Tic Tac, the Go Fast, and the Gimbal are only 3. So there's 141 other incidences with 80 of them having multiple sensor readings, and this task force is in possession of them. So will we get further declassification from this task force, and then is it made available to the public? Well, the DoD just released the infrared and the optical sensor data so that people can just look at them. I think this is fascinating stuff. Are we going to get more pictures? Are we going to get more videos? Once again, if this task force is given broader authority, is there something they can do to anticipate where these UAPs normally fly, and then we can get better videos, better pictures of them? Additionally, could Congress take a serious issue in this and form a select committee? Could they hold additional hearings? Could they bring service members in to talk about their experiences when they've interacted with these UAPs in the skies? I think it's all fascinating and very interesting. Once again, the destigmatization of talking about UAPs has been the biggest breakthrough the last 2 years, and I'm excited for it. I'm excited for learning what the heck are these things.
So the big report is finally here, the preliminary assessment of the unidentified aerial phenomenon Office of the Director of National Intelligence unclassified report, 25th of June 2021. Okay, explaining UAP will require analytical, collection, and resource investment. This is kind of like the we need more money. The UAP task force needs more money, or if we want to solve this thing, we need to put money into data collection in general across the board. So they're saying standardized things. They're talking about employing artificial intelligence, which would be great. They can filter out cases. Yeah, it'd be really good if you could actually use AI to take in a very large number of data sets. The problem with UFO reporting historically has been that we get so much noise. especially when there's a UFO flap like there is right now, you get thousands of people reporting UFOs. And the vast majority of them, obviously, if not all of them, are fairly ordinary objects. Yet we want to find the things that actually are extraordinary. If there's a foreign adversary trying to sneak drones in, we want to be able to detect that particular thing, and we need to filter out all the noise to do that. And this is one of the reasons back in the 1950s the government encouraged the debunking of UFOs, because all the reports that were coming in were taking up too much time for the authorities to track down these essentially false reports of just nonsense noise. But now we have the opportunity to allow all that noise in. We just open the floodgates and say, yes, send us all your UAP reports. And then we have AI look at the reports, and the AI will determine if any of them don't fit the normal patterns of things like birds and balloons and plastic bags and drones. And those will get bumped up to more consideration to human analysis. So that's a good idea. And they developed interagency analytical and processing workflows to ensure collection analysis will be well informed and coordinated. Sounds great. Okay, efforts to standardize reporting, jolly good. Working to acquire additional reporting, including from the US Air Force, because most of it's come from the Navy. It seems to be some kind of cultural difference between the Navy and the Air Force. Perhaps there's more reports over the ocean for a variety of reasons. Perhaps it's just easier to spot them against the ocean, perhaps. I don't know. Or perhaps the Air Force doesn't like to report these things. But anyway, we're trying to improve that. And then the FAA. FAA, of course, has radar running all the time, covering the entire country. And if there was UFOs, UAPs showing up on that radar, it would be in the data. So it would be good to get the data from them and analyze it using AI. It would be great. You could historically look at all the historical data and use some AI to find things that were weird. All right, so let's see. The UAP task force is looking for novel ways to increase collection of UAP cluster areas, where US forces are not present, as a way to baseline standard UAP activity and mitigate the collection bias in the data set. So that's saying basically we will study UAPs extensively in an area that's not of security concern. So we'll go out into, like, I don't know, some town in Kansas that does not have a military base near it, and we'll set up cameras to study UAPs in the sky, and we'll use that to compare against the results of all the cameras and the radars from an actual military base. So we'll get this baseline reading of UAP activity from all the false positives, things like birds and drones and whatnot, and then we'll be able to kind of subtract that from the data that we get from an actual military site, and then we'll be able to see if there are things that stand out which are actual security threats. Good idea. Good idea, UAP Task Force. And one proposal is to use advanced algorithms to search historical data captured and stored by radar. That's what I just said. Okay, increased investment in research and development. The UAP Task Force has indicated that additional funding for research and development could further the future study of the topics laid out in this report. Such investments should be guided by a UAP collection strategy, UAP R&D technical roadmap, and a UAP program plan. I wonder if those things are coming. This is a preliminary report, and I think that's pretty much the last page of it. There's a couple of appendices, but that's it. This is